Welcome everyone, it's Evelyn. How are you guys? I was doing the read for today. I actually did it last night. And from the read, I was getting some major downloads, which I'm going to present to you first, and then I will do the read for you as well. I don't think you can hear the noise outside, but there's some construction being done outside, so I apologize if you hear anything. But in the read, triple threes were coming up, and that's the theme of what you're seeing in front of you. Actually, it does say triple threes up top here, but my camera cut it off because it's not big enough. So I was getting three Sage of Chalices in the code line today, and the triple threes came up in the read as well. And then as I was clarifying all of the acronyms and all their different definitions and meanings, definitely the egg was coming up, and armor and having thick skin. And I'll bring more of that stuff up in the read, but I want to get right to the point of these pictures here. There's 2 pages. So the 3 Queen of Cups or the Sage of Chalices were coming up, or the Empress and a Queen of Cups, meaning like the Empress is worth 2 Queen of Cups. And then magnetic and electric were coming up, and actually mag, as far as magnetic, mag means the field. It means a plane or field. It also means the wizard or magician, magus, the seed, and also rest and rabbit. It also means to steal, power, and might. The mag of magnetic and magician. It is the field, the magnetic field. And REI was coming up here too. REI is, where was it? So REI means king, and also network and net. It also means face, and the past tense of to ride. And there's a bunch of other meanings I'll bring up in the read when I do it. But the magnetic metals were coming up in one of the acronyms, and that's what started all of this, along with the threes and the dance of the king and compassion here, which is in the read. So to be silent and take the high road ×2, the egg of the Queen of Cups, or the 3, or the rare heavy magnetic elements. And again, threes were coming up. ELE is 3 letters, and then trivalent salts were coming up, which is the tri, which is 3, and then the number 3 was coming up, and water came up 3 times. It was all about 3, 3, 3. And then when salt came up, I remembered the alchemical symbols of salt, the heavenly, the 3. I don't know if it's the word heavenly symbols, but the 3 salt group in the alchemy codes. So I remembered them, the 3 of them, and they were coming up salt. And then as soon as I was seeing salt, I was getting the movie Salt, and her name happened to be Evelyn in the movie, which that was Angelina Jolie who played that. So it was bringing up the salt and the salt of the earth, and me as Evelyn representing the divine feminine energies here. And the dance of the king, the circle dance of the human dance, the network, and to laugh when you're up against harsh weather. So magnetic was being broken down into 3 parts, and so was electric. The magnetic, the 3 salts of the earth. The salt preserves, but it also adds taste. And then from the Church of Jesus Christ.org was coming up. The salt preserves and it adds taste or flavor in the Bible, but the smell is the most significant to the ancients, because in offering to the Lord, especially things of the flesh that were dead, was the smell, a sweet, pleasant smell, a savor unto the Lord. To ensure the offering would be sweet, Mosaic law required the offering be liberally sprinkled with salt, because the dead flesh stench with salt would become sweet. So the offer of salt with all thine offerings, the end of blood sacrifice, ye shall offer for a sacrifice unto me, instead of no more shedding of blood, a broken heart and a contrite spirit. So this is what started all of this off. And like I said, mag means magician, wizard, the stomach as well, gastritis, the plane field, the magnetic field, and Mach also comes up in wise man as well, and the core, very important here. So magnetic is the core, the field, the feminine energy, right, the etheric, and the electric being the masculine energy, and we'll get into that more as well. So what was so significant about the 333 in the list you see in front of you was that they were taking me to the 3 salts and the elements, because they listed the 4 elements, plus ether, which is 5 elements, and then 3 salts, which is 8. And we know things always come in 9s or 333. So I'm like, what is that 9th element? And it was coming up as the breath, which you see in the middle of this read, that the 4 elements isn't 4, but it's actually 6. And it's in 2 categories as seen here, right, with water, fire, and earth. Okay, and you see these represent all the feminine energies, this all the masculine energies, and these are all the bridges between the masculine and feminine energies and source. So we have the water, like ultrasound. I always talk about that like ultrasound gel, that you need to make sure you drink water because that's your bridge to source. Earth is the feminine energy, fire is the masculine energy, air is the masculine energy, and ether is the feminine energy, and the breath is the bridge between. How cool is that? Like, when the baby takes their first breath. So we have the water that connects us to the etheric realms, the baby's breath, and salt is actually the connection. Some people put it in one of the other categories, but that's not what Spirit was showing me. They were showing me the salt is the connection, just like water is, like ultrasound gel. Salt is the connection, just like we use salt, to clear our etheric field. And Mercury comes up as the feminine energy and sulfur as the masculine. I'm going to give you some images of that on the next page as well. Also, so the Christ, Source, and Sophia come up, the Father, Child, and the Mother. But also that I didn't list here was the King. The Red King comes up in Alchemy. The Red King and the White Queen. And then the egg would come up as in the middle, okay? Because the egg was coming up as well. But the child can be the same thing as the egg. And then we have the sulfur, salt, and Mercury, the fire, water, earth, air, breath, ether. And then this was coming up as east and west. This is east, her, Easter, west, him, westim, and then the bridge between is the Elohim, the ELO, which is the Electric Light Orchestra, and the hymn, right, of the song. Sorry, I have a hair hanging from me. So westim, I wanted to bring that up because that means to, where was that again? Westum means to waste. Okay, so we have west, and I always say that west is the masculine energy, east is the feminine energy. And here's Easter with east, her, and west, him, which means to waste. And then however you perceive Easter, and then the Elohim is the bridge between. And then electric is the masculine, magnetic is the feminine, and static, electricity, that would be the connection to the etheric realms. And then again, the west and the east, and then just EST in the middle, because that means grace and favor, and also this word here, to be and exist. So you see this A and the E is actually combined like here, but when I typed it in, it wouldn't do it, so I drew it here. So this is coming up as the atom, and this is all in my picture, but it's been cut off on the 2 sides. This A is Adam, the E is Eve, and here is the AE, Arts and Entertainment Network, okay, of the masculine and the feminine. So let me just see what else I wrote here. I don't want to miss anything. Some other groups came through as well. So in what was coming up from the churchofjesuschrist.org, as well as what I told you already, to be baptized with fire and the Holy Spirit, so the fire of transmutation and the masculine energy, and the spirit of the Sophia and the feminine energy. But if salt loses its savor, then you can use salt on the street. Like, so if it gets dirty and you can't use it for those purposes, you can always put it on the street when it snows. It's impure salt is a very unpleasant odor, so it's discarded. So when it's impure, it doesn't make the the smell better. It makes it worse, actually. So it's important that the salt is pure. that charity is the key to this process, or in other words, to walk in love, to love others purely as we are loved by Source, sweet and savory, just like our food. So I want to bring up now some more symbolism. All right, so here we have the symbolism of pi. So that's what pi looks like, right? So the circle with the diameter. And here's the symbol for salt. And you notice when you go from this symbol to symbol, it's turning the key to this combination, which is pi plus salt, which is salt of the earth, someone who kneels and humbles themselves. Pineal gland. This is representing for me the pineal gland, okay? So the pictures down here, this is the alchemical symbols for the masculine energy, sulfur, for the feminine energy, Mercury, and I'm just showing you how they combine, because as you combine these two here, this becomes here the hermetic seal of light. Okay, so you see how the triangle fits into the circle here, and as you put these two shapes together, the missing link in this is the phi here that goes outside the lines to expand to the etheric realms and down to the heart. So if you put these two together and adding the pineal gland cross here in the middle of the circle, we end up having the expansion here. What's missing here is the red lines outside the circle. This one outside the circle that goes from the masculine's heart to his mouth, and this one outside the circle, which is the feminine's head to Source, our connection. So what we're missing, or what we were missing before, was, the process of expanding ourselves to Source. So here's the feminine expanding and the masculine expanding from his heart to his mouth. Again, the pi hole and the pi gland. Okay, so the circles, the heart, the masculine's mouth, and then the pineal gland connecting to Source above their head. Okay, so this was very significant here. Besides the breath as the ninth element, merging these two, the masculine and feminine, together, along with the pineal, and then expanding it into the phi, which is the pi becomes phi when you go outside the lines. So I'm getting from the triangle, it's coming up like the blockhead and the devil, even though it's a triangle. And the triangle represents change for the masculine, because the masculine energy is symbolic of change, and the feminine is symbolic of the shape, the shaping of it. Because what good is the change if you can't shape it as it changes? So that's the masculine and feminine as far as the alchemical symbols go. The 5 elements: fire, air, water, earth, and then ether, which is the spirit, and then the 3 more of the salt, the sulfur, and the mercury, and then the 9th is the breath, as I show you on the chart. So the male attributes here, it's very important because there's so many that symbolically make this valid here. The sulfur or male energy is the active component, the creation of the triangle, the change. Masculine is hot, dry, fire, sun, and gold, whereas the shaping of the feminine is the quicksilver, the mercury, the passive female, the liquid at room temperature, easily shaped, old and moist water, the moon and silver all go along with the feminine energy. And so a lot of this was coming up from learnreligious.com. So the red king was coming up as the sulfur or the masculine, the white queen is the mercury, and then the salt in between, the salt of the earth. The soul splits in the fall season, and here we're talking about savor and taste. And here is the fall season, and we're in the fall season, so seasoning is salt. The soul splits in the fall season with sulfur and mercury, the masculine and the feminine, with the salt, 2 sides of the same coin, in need of unity again. So the salt starts out coarse and impure. Through alchemical process, the salt is broken down by dissolving and then purified and reformed into pure salt, the result of the interactions between the mercury and the sulfur. So the alchemy strips down the self, which is the twin flame journey in the dark night. So the alchemy strips down the self to the nothingness, leaving everything bare to be scrutinized. By gaining self-knowledge about one's nature and one's relation to God, the soul is reformed, the impurities expunged, or I think that's the word they used, and then united into a pure and individual thing. The purpose of alchemy. Salt, mercury, and sulfur equals the body, spirit, soul, the physical connection to the soul, one's personal essence. So the bridge of the body and soul and God, soul and world. And again, this is all coming up from learnreligious.com. So the 5 elements plus 3 salts, but what was that 9th one? Is the breath. The fire, water, earth, and air was the one that gets cut off and into the other 3 group of air, ether, and breath. The ether is considered the pure sky, the fresh air above us, that's everywhere in the universe, whereas air is only around the earth. And the breath is only around the human body. So the air and the ether, but only around the earth. The air is in the ether, but it's only around the earth, whereas the ether is everywhere in the universe. The oxygen and the 2 hydrocarbon groups inaccessible to humans. So ether also comes as, it's spelled as E-T-H-E-R, but also A-E-T-H-E-R. And E-A-T-H-E-R means either. And then Esther, that's when Esther and West Him was coming up. But also Esther was coming up here. Esther, ether, Easter, they're all coming up together. And then the EST was coming up, which means grace, favor. It also means the East. To be, to have, to exist, and that var, V-A-E-R-E word, where the A and E, I don't know what that letter is actually called when they're combined, but it's literally the E reflected upon itself, the A and the E, the Adam and the Eve, and then them together, the arts and entertainment, the creative part of the human being. So the other 3s that came up, and I just want to bring it down here, this is, again, the Hermetic seal of light, and then here is the... I wanted to show you this because this is like the Taurus symbol is just another version of the petal of the flower of life symbol, the fish. So it's just a different shape, and it's like an angel fish. And actually this shape comes up very much repeated in the human body. And then again, here's the phi. So it's the same as pi, but it draws outside the lines. That's the expansion of us. Here where we need to expand the masculine's heart to the throat so he'll speak his truth, and the feminine expanding her 3rd eye outside of herself to connect more and meditate to the etheric realms. So going back to this, we also had, like I said, king, queen, and then the egg in the middle, and then also face, water, and network were coming in. So 1 being the face, and 1 being the one who likes to network, and then the water again being here, like the fire and the earth. So the earth would be the face, and then the fire would be the networking, and the water. And then also animals came up. The wolf came up, the pig, and the rabbit. And I didn't have time to figure out which placements they are. But the wolf was coming up under the armor, the second skin, the support system. So the wolf is actually the support system, right? He's the protector. The rabbits, and the rabbit came up very significant for me because in my relationship many years ago, he actually had a rabbit's head alchemized to him in Italy. And he actually had the rabbit's head. It was like, made out of nothing, literally, at this very high echelon group that was supposed to be a secret meeting. And he was only there because someone he knew was invited to this meeting, and he was the driver. And it was, they had it all wired, this man without any sleeves on, and showing that from nothing in his hand and the lights coming out everywhere, he alchemized a rabbit's head, which there's a book about it, but the one I have is in Italian, so I've never been able to read it. But the rabbit's head came up here. And again, here's us paralleling the alchemical process and all the alchemical symbols. So the wolf, the pig, and the rabbit came up as 3 as well. And then, was there anything else? Just the salt. I wanted you to know everything that salt means. So salt means, it literally means, from all of the definitions in Wiktionary, flavor, sense, the senses, the sixth sense, so it's another sense. It means, that's a confirmation. Wit, deposits, excavation, use, costly, expensive, jump, leap, spring, saltation. So I'm going to tell you these meanings as well, because saltation literally means mutation, change from one generation to the next, an abrupt transition, which is the quantum leap, saltation. Salt is the bridge. Okay, the jump. And you notice the jump of the leap, and the spring comes up, and the water fall back, spring forward. So again, the pie. Whoops, sorry about that. I got a call from my friend. Hope Joe doesn't mind that. Okay, so we have the pie and the salt of the earth, who kneels and humbles himself, becoming the pineal gland up top here. And then we have the masculine change and the shape of the feminine, becoming the hermetic seal of light, and the pie hole and the pineal as being very significant to get to and to expand from. The cross line, it represents salt, remember, the salt of the earth. It's what grounds you, okay? And then the pineal is the vertical line, the one that expands you upward into the phi energy to connect to the divine triangle in the head here, which peaks up here at the top of the head, the crown. To connect to the divine triangle, you must use phi, expanding from pi, or the pineal gland. Saltation, again, being sudden transition, change from one generation to the next. An abrupt transition, a quantum leap. And that salt equals the waterfall. The water in the fall, and then the spring leap. The spring, right, fall back, leap forward. So there's your fall and winter, time changes here. But that literally is what salt means. Salt means waterfall, and it means spring leap. It also means sense and flavor and wit, as well as costs and deposits and excavation, and to freeze as well, which is preserves. So really important information about salt. And I hope this was all helpful to you. It was really profound for me. And also the Fifi was coming up in regards to this, not because of iron, but because of the expansion of the phi. Because we're talking about those 2 little red lines. So, right, we're showing phi as the red line here. And then the 2 expansions here, the 2 little red lines being phi and phi. And so instead of Fifi, of iron, it's phi. So Fifi, phi or Fifi, however you want to say it. So that was coming up in parallel to that as well. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna shut this down, and I'm gonna go into the read as well. Rise and be loved, guys. See you in a minute.